Hi, John Conley here, your guide to all things audio tech from the KeyCode Audio team. We've been seeing a lot of churches, performance centers, and corporate production facilities scratching their head as they consider long overdue upgrades to their live audio systems. The first questions asked is, what's changed? Well, a lot, let me tell you. It's like explaining the difference between a new smartphone and your old flip phone. We've gathered our team of audio engineers and dove deep into the latest generation of digital mixers, wireless microphones, and speakers. Digital audio mixers have become the de facto standard for any application, large or small. They offer advantages such as better signal processing, flexible routing, the ability to store and recall settings, ease of use with optional mobile apps, and they're intuitive to use. The good news, you don't need to be an audio pro to operate this gear. These newer systems can be intuitive enough for a student or volunteer to get up to speed on the basics quickly. When it comes to simplifying these systems, your familiar cable spaghetti can now be narrowed down to a few Ethernet cables. Yes, that's right, Ethernet cables. Comprehensive digital signal processing, or DSP, eliminates large amounts of external gear, thereby significantly reducing costs, as well as allowing you to achieve that warm analog sound if you'd like. Let's talk about connectivity. How does all this gear talk to each other? A term you may have heard about, audio over IP, sends multi-channel audio over an Ethernet cable. There are a few common IP-based audio protocols, Dante and AVB being the most common. A host of manufacturers support these protocols with microphones, speakers, converters, I/O expanders, basically anything in the audio ecosystem. With this technology, you can connect that 16, 32, or whatever channel stage box filled with your wired microphones, guitars, drum kits, and more to your front-of-house console on a single Ethercon cable. This reduced cabling significantly lowers installation costs while increasing routing functionality. Here's a quick example. Perhaps you're a school or a corporate campus. You could theoretically build a digital-ready podium on wheels that could be dragged from classroom to auditorium. Connect the podium to any Ethernet port on your LAN network, and now that digital mixer located halfway across the campus could still be managing the channels of audio without rewiring a thing. That leads to presets. With the move to a modern digital mixer, you can pre-configure the mixer for a variety of different use cases. Perhaps you have an auditorium that has an orchestra performing with a large amount of microphone inputs, only to be followed by a drama class that uses a mix of the same and different microphones. Within a few button pushes on the screen, you can quickly jump back and forth between these pre-configured setups. This is a huge time saver. Combining presets gets really powerful when you connect all of your audio sources over an IP network. For example, a college athletics video department could set up a preset for a stage box setup in the basketball court with another stage box on the football field. Your video control room could quickly switch back and forth between these preset sources on the network, allowing you to potentially live stream one event and then quickly move to the next. Modern mixers feature built-in DSP, or digital signal processing, allowing users to apply an endless variety of effects, EQ, and dynamics processing without the need for external gear. While incredibly powerful, these mixers can still be very easy to use. For example, digital audio mixers from the same manufacturer operate mostly the same, meaning if you start on a 12-fader Allen and Heath, learn the interface and the menu system, the layout will be mostly the same as the 36-fader D-Live mixer used for larger events. While the larger consoles will have additional processing, routing, and interconnectivity, the experience of using the layout of faders and software is a similar experience. Current touchscreen technology has come a long way. Manufacturers have made big advancements, and the result is a functional touchscreen that can be a lifesaver in many productions. For example, a modern channel EQ can now be adjusted in a fast, intuitive way, all while being overlaid on a real-time frequency analyzer. iOS and Android apps are available that allow you to mix from anywhere in your facility. It's a complete game changer. Here's a few examples. Controlling your mixer from an app means you can walk around a venue with the freedom to make adjustments to your mix from anywhere. That app can also be customized to whatever layout or function you desire. Perhaps you have a volunteer using the iPad at a town hall meeting that can just mute or unmute a microphone, and that's all it does. That volunteer doesn't need to be an audio pro and can provide a vital function at a rambunctious town hall meeting. There's a lot we didn't cover, like the expanded connectivity options that allow you to connect USB or Thunderbolt devices, automatic mixing algorithms, scene recall, simplifying complex setups, and allowing users to save and quickly switch between different configurations, or the recording of these events with seamless digital audio workstation integration. This allows for easy recording, editing, and mixing. All right, let's get into wireless microphones. When it comes to advancements in wireless microphones, it all comes down to monitoring and managing challenges, namely conflicting frequencies in an increasingly smaller frequency range. Over the last several years, the FCC has been auctioning off the wireless spectrum in the 2.5 gigahertz range where wireless microphones live. The amount of broadcast space has been halved, and wireless microphones must work within a smaller space. In addition to that, other devices such as LED walls that are growing in popularity can cause interference. Wireless audio companies are providing easy solutions with free RF scanning tools like the Shure Wireless Workbench. These apps help audio professionals assess their real-time availability of RF channels while also assessing RF environmental data. For those mission-critical productions, there's also a digital spectrum manager, which provides real-time scanning and monitors frequencies available and will use automatic frequency management to seamlessly switch between the frequencies. Digital audio, or audio over IP, has become the dominant answer to resolving the reduction of RF frequencies available. Wireless audio is transitioning from antennas to wireless routers, allowing a production to deliver more wireless sources over a network. Many advancements have been made to monitor other common issues such as wireless battery life. You can now see a countdown of battery life in real time, both at the receiver and the belt pack. This allows you to be proactive before your battery dies. Another advancement is with security. In the past, anyone could use an RF tuner to tune in and listen to your RF audio signals. This has led to some very embarrassing leaked audio moments for sure. When security matters, AES 256 encryption is now the standard. You can also take remote control of the transmitter using systems like Shure ShowLink. Advancements for harsh environments. There are a variety of microphones that are now built to withstand the harshest environments, including moisture, wind, and dust. And for those large LED walls in venues, there are shielding options designed to reduce noise. In recent years, loudspeaker systems have seen many innovations aimed at improving performance, versatility, ease of use, and reducing size. For speaker systems, the old-school heavy analog snakes required to connect mid to large-size line arrays and speaker systems are quickly getting replaced by Cat6 Ethernet cable. The most obvious benefit being the cost-reduced lightweight nature of running a single cable that can carry multiple channels of audio to patch. Open-source application layers like Milan are continuing to see advancements and picking up a lot of steam with partners like Meyer Sound, L Acoustics, and others. Built on the AVB protocol, Milan allows for delivery of control and media over an Ethernet cable. As more manufacturers continue to innovate in the network-based space, we will continue to see a reduction in the need for cabling and a simplification of controlling speaker systems in general. Speaker system design has also seen some major improvements. The weight and size of speakers have gone down considerably. This has added some flexibility to the number of speakers and subs required to fill a room, as well as things like weight loads for rigging. There's also been a significant development in acoustic simulation programs such as EASE or Map 3D. These apps allow you to model and predict how speaker systems perform in your space before you buy them. They offer 3D modeling of line arrays, sub-arrays, digital steering columns, and conventional loudspeakers. This allows for accurate decisions on how many line arrays, speakers, and/or subs you might need. And these apps are free. Another application worth mentioning is Smart. Smart is a phenomenal tool for measuring and tuning your audio system for a room or venue. There are a host of innovations in loudspeakers, including advancements in rigging for easier and safer installs, active DSP integration, advancements in enclosure design to minimize resonance and unwanted vibrations. Reach out to Keycode for more information. This has been a high-level update of the advancements we've seen in live audio systems over the last 10 years. Hopefully, it provides a broad understanding on current audio technology. If you're currently exploring new live audio systems, reach out to the Keycode Media Audio team. We are a live audio and video reseller and systems integrator, helping with everything from designing full facilities to helping purchase the right product. Thank you for watching. I'm John Conley, Solutions Architect and part of the Keycode Media Audio team.
What does it take to master front-of-house talent for some of the most renowned live performance venues across the nation? Today, we have the privilege of delving into this fascinating world with an exceptional guest. I'm thrilled to introduce Frederick Vogler, a multi-Grammy Award-winning sound designer and front-of-house mixer, known for his outstanding work at iconic venues like the Hollywood Bowl and Walt Disney Concert Hall. Through his consulting company, Sonitus, Fred has left his mark not only on the LA Phil, LA Opera, and the Mormon Tabernacle Choir, but has also lent his expertise to events spanning from Menlo Park to Santiago, Chile, and even Florida. Earlier in his career, Mr. Vogler made significant contributions to the film industry, serving as an on-set music playback live record engineer for beloved films like Sister Act 1 and 2 and The Preacher's Wife. Without further ado, let's extend a warm welcome to Fred Vogler.
Hello.
Hello, Fred.
Hey.
Thanks for joining us. Can you walk us through your journey into the world of live sound design and front-of-house mixing? I mean, what initially drew you into this field, and how did you get it started?
I think that, like a lot of people in the industry, we start as musicians at some point, and through the passion of playing music or being active or involved in music and music making, you find a path. And, it was early on, like 12 years old range, that I was introduced to professional audio equipment and professional recording and stuff, and was so kind of enthralled with the concept of capture and record and multi-track that I was focused on getting and having those components for myself. And so I played in bands in my teens, and got into college and realized that my performing skills as a keyboardist and stuff weren't on par with the skills of lots of other musicians in the programs around me. And I had a real penchant or interest in all of the technology, the microphones and capturing sound. And so through some luck and some real concentrated focus and interest, I was able to kind of parlay that into doing more engineering and some studio, but mainly location work. So I would go to a concert hall, I'd go to a church, I would go to a variety of different acoustics and record whatever ensemble, whatever music was being made. And, through that, I was able to, learn a lot about mic technique and different performers and working with the personalities. And, I anybody who's been in the business knows it's all about kind of your energy and how you contribute to the cause. If you're someone stressed or adding more anxiety in general, it's hard to have you around in a live setting. If you can kind of roll with it and you're comforting and offer, sort of a stable environment, it seems to work much better. And that's what kind of happened. I was a student at USC in the School of Music, and I was recording, I don't know, 3, maybe 4 recitals or concerts or something a week, it seemed. And, got to know and see and hear a lot of different types of music, lots of different ensembles. And then, you get lucky sometimes, and something opens up and you can jump on that. And, the location film work was some of that. That was an interesting process to be part of, and to see entertainment, industry at that level, because there's just so much power, but all these people working together to create something extraordinary. And then, at the same time doing record work and doing, orchestral based, I guess, support allowed me to kind of get into, I got offered to work on the Streisand orchestra mixes for her big come out of the, she hadn't performed in 25 years or something. And
Right.
they needed someone who could work with the orchestra and create submixes for the front of house and for monitors and stuff. And that was a big eye opener too, because that scale, again, working with people that were way more experienced in live sound. But kind of as my main introduction into it was pretty exciting. And it's a you're going to make some mistakes, but hopefully you don't make big mistakes, and you're going to learn along the way. And I've had the fortune of some good mentors, and people that were good for me to um, ask questions or get guidance from. And then the Hollywood Bowl came to be in the early 2000s, 2003, and I was wary at the time of what that meant and how that would define me. Oh my God, I'm
Oh,
gonna be a
yeah.
live sound person. And in the 90s, live sound was sort of that secondary career. It was the recording studio, it was making, those type of records. But as that industry changed with digital distribution and ability to share files and not have to buy physical discs and stuff, that industry kind of to shrink a little bit, and live sound and the world of that live entertainment has grown. And so I've seen in the last 20 years being at the bowl this just dramatic change. You go to the trade shows, you go to the various conventions and stuff, and you see live sound now is kind of the legit, more very um appreciated and represented industry. So like I said, it's somewhat luck and timing and all that. So it's kind of brought me to that place, and I've been fortunate with the affiliation, especially with the Hollywood Bowl. We do so many different types of programs, and high level by and large. So it's been a really good opportunity.
Yeah, that's an amazing history. You've obviously worked in lots of different venues and spaces, and for different types of performances. What are the most important things you think for doing sound design for different types of venues? Is there kind of one unique thread that you use, or do you have some different approaches based on the type of performance and the type of venue?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, sound design, works in theater differently than it does in motion picture and then live sound. And there's there's a common thread with all of the folks that do sound design and trying to recreate or trying to, um, I guess, enhance the experience for the audience. In live sound, you're often having to be conscious of time because you only have so much rehearsal, so much setup, and then they do a show. And once the show starts, the train's left the station. You're moving.
Game on.
You can't stop and retool and rethink this. So you have to be very quick on your feet, and you have to be prepared as best possible. Knowing microphones, because the tools of sound design are obviously microphones, speakers, and then you have to be familiar with room acoustics. You have to know sound wave propagation, understand what absorbs, what reflects, and diffuses sound, and how those can maybe help in the process. And then you have to be open-minded. Again, you don't want to be that stress person that's causing more stress and aggravation for the event. You have to be able to kind of adapt and move with the production, because inevitably you can set up a lot of things and in advance and expect it all to come together, but there's, oh, by the way, so there's unexpected things that are going to change. And then a really good group of people around you, and that's the other thing. I've been fortunate to have um incredible support, from crew, high level crew people to sound design and manufacturers with strong sound engineers and stuff. So I'd like to say, oh, it's just my great work, but in fact, it's the accomplishment of many that make these things successful. And I get to sit on the console or sit in the house and drive it or be somewhat in charge, but it's really a whole team of people that makes these things possible.
Absolutely. You've mentioned microphones a number of times. Are there some specific microphone techniques that you've developed, or um, I don't know, we can get into some specific brands, but what do you take in your toolkit as a collection of microphones, or is it just unique to each show?
Well, I think that you do learn a certain type of transducer and microphone that works better for certain instances or instruments. And again, I think doing all those recitals when I was in my college days and early 20s, that I was able to try different mics and try different locations on variety of instruments, whether it was piano or voice or trio or larger ensembles. And you learn, kind of the fundamentals of miking, because there's it's kind of a physics, thing. There's a spacing between the mics, there's a distance from the source, there's a height of the mics, and then there's an angle of the mic. And those four parameters, width, distance, height, angle, will change everything. Your ability to capture sound and then make it louder is what we do in the world of amplification, right? Live sound is make it louder. Is really dependent on how you position those mics and your familiarity with them. I use a wide range of mics, and again, depending on what the source on stage is doing, if it's just orchestral, and there's no amplification, in the sense there's no keyboard or bass or something that needs amplification, then I might get the Sheps out, might get the Sennheisers out, and focus a little bit more on areas. But if there's a band and an orchestra or orchestral elements, then you have to go tight, and you have to get something that's like the DPA 4099 on the strings, which is an individual string mic. There's going to be bleed. We call it friendly fire, from other elements, but hopefully there'll be more of that instrument than there are the others. And so proximity and how you can get that in there. And you also have to be constantly conscious of sight lines. Inevitably there's IMAG, or there's some sort of a camera or something, or the player has to see the conductor or has to see other band or orchestra members. So you can't just put anything up that you want. You're going to have to negotiate. And so, but mic technique is imperative. I think understanding microphones and having a collection to kind of choose from is really important.
I think that's great advice. It might always been my experience that you can't really fix what is broken on the input. If it's really bad on the input, you can only make it a little bit better. So getting it right at the beginning is absolutely critical.
Absolutely.
Very, very, very good advice. I've had some experience dealing with some performing talent on microphones with some of my past working for Electro Voice and for Crown. So, some top talent there. Do you find that some performers have specific requirements that they really insist on, and is that an important part of your toolkit as well?
Definitely. I mean, you have to have a good dialogue and a good relationship with the performers. Um, I'm lucky to have been raised by a psychologist, so listening and understanding human behavior and kind of working with, the different personalities is a benefit, and knowing and talking to artists and kind of getting a sense of what's realistic, is part of the absolute, I guess, challenge, but also success of it. If you can get in and have that rapport and kind of a dialogue with the artist and get them to work with you and the technology, boy, things go much better. I mean, recently I did a show with Seth MacFarlane and got him to sing into a 1937 vintage RCA 44. And I'd been asking Seth, we'd done some other shows in the past, orchestra band and kind of Sinatra based songs. And he agreed to it, but I said, there's a familiarity or comfort you have to have with that technology. You don't stand back. You have to work the mic, and you have to, become very comfortable, maybe touching or holding or bringing it in, because that will really ignite the quality of sound. And boy, he did it, and it was fantastic. So you have to be able to have a chance to find artists that are willing to talk, but some of them want head lavs, have some of them want, a certain handheld, and there's you can't completely dictate it. You have to, open it up and maybe suggest. And if something doesn't work, then you go, well, I have this other one. You could try this. Because sometimes artists are director, producer types want, oh, I don't want to see the mic. I don't want to see anything. And you go, okay, well, we can try that. you know, and when it doesn't work, you better have a plan B or the next thing ready. And that happens regularly as well. If somebody's got a vision of what it should look like and not necessarily understand that you have to have the mic in a certain position or it just doesn't work. For monitors, doesn't work for PA, doesn't work for the quality of sound.
Sure.
So,
What are some of the other challenges that you've experienced in venues that have been tough to overcome? And I love your approach of just be chill and mellow and work with the people there. Don't add to the stress. What are some of the toughest things that you've experienced, and how have you been able to overcome them?
well, toughest is always time. I mean, as I'd mentioned earlier, because everyone's stressed and everyone has priorities, and there's a lot of other issues that are happening, whether it's lighting, and they got everything all over the stage, and you're trying to get things set up, but they have to get the lights in place so they can raise, the lighting trusses up into position. There's constant set design and stuff that you have to work around, and cameras and stuff like that everybody wants. It's all kind of a bit of a game for who's going to get their stuff in there and positioned in the best way. And there's electrical issues. You can't have your mic lines and electrical lines laying on top of each other. You get hums and buzzes. But I think that the biggest challenges are the personalities around you, and again, you'll find some venues have stronger personalities than others, and that goes for any of the departments, whether because if you do location work, you have to go to that place, and somebody has been there maybe for a long time, and they don't need somebody coming in and telling them how to do everything. And so you have to kind of curb your desire to enforce your opinion or your sound or your approach on everybody. You have to see what they're doing and make kind of make it work for you. I find a lot of times people are so eager to, hey, we have to have it this way, and I'm going to tune your system. And I've been host to a lot of sound persons who come through and they want to, they're going to mix a show, or they're going to be doing something involved with sound at the venue that I'm at and I'm kind of overseeing. And the ones that come in with the attitude that, hey, tell me how you do this, or how does that work, or what do you recommend? Boy, the day is going to go a lot better if they come in with a real strong attitude and kind of like going to force their way and tell you what you've been doing wrong all this time. It doesn't usually happen well. And most of the time, the persons that have been at venues have reasons for why they're doing what they're doing. And you just have to be open-minded again, and you have to sit there and listen to what they've done. It doesn't mean that you have to do it the same way. It just means that you give them a chance to talk and explain, and then you adapt the way you want to do it to what they have. And sometimes they offer things that you hadn't thought of that are way better, and it works out successful. That 44 mic that I wanted to put on, the crew chief at the Kennedy Center said, hey, why don't we put this wireless mic plug on it so he doesn't have to also deal with the cable management. I was like, didn't think about that, because the mic is heavy, the mic stand is heavy to keep the mic from falling over, and not having to do cable management, paging, and all that stuff was a game changer. And I was like, yeah, that was a really good idea, and it worked. It worked well. So Seth could move the mic into position for the slower songs that he was singing, and then move it out of the position and go back to the handheld. And again, if you come in with a big attitude, they're not necessarily going to suggest anything to help you. And you should definitely know that the persons that are in those venues can be a big aid. They can also be a big, problem.
Pain if
So
you turn them off.
that's a challenge, and you gotta learn to work with the persons and the personnel around you.
That's great advice. What impact would you say technology has had in both helping with live sound production and recording, as well as maybe not helping so much?
Well, live sound has matured and gone through some pretty significant changes in the last 15 years. And digital technology has been wonderful. The ability to save and recall and um, set up quickly and go to onboard um, record facility or EQ or compression and all that stuff has really transformed the way you operate in a live setting. We have shows with 160 mics. We get one rehearsal, and we're on air that night. So set up, rehearse, a little bit of a break, and then we do a concert. And then the next day is something completely different. So the network, the concept of having everything on a network and being able to access all of those sounds and then send things around, game changer. But the folly and the challenge is to not lose focus of the quality or the sound itself. People get pretty ambitious with plugins or with all the different toys you can throw on it. But why? Because they're there, and I guess, man, let's just try them. And in the last year, I inherited a 1974 Claire audio board that was used for Springsteen and whatnot concerts because a mixer that I came to know, Bruce Jackson, had passed away some years ago, and his widow asked if I'd like the board. And at first I was like, oh, what am I going to do with a 32 input analog console that was used for live sound? Well, as it turns out, the quality of the sport's pretty high, and the componentry, we did some caps, to change the capacitors and stuff to get those all on par because it's a board that's
It's
40
so
years
old. Yeah.
Yeah. 50 years old, I guess. But the sound of it's really good. And the remarkable thing is that it focuses my attention to the sound more than looking at all the incredible colors and graphic representation of EQ or whatever compression you're doing. So you can't in digital, you turn that knob and you see that waveform up and down, and you go, I'm at 3.1K and I'm pushing it 4.2 decibels, and it's got a cue of blah blah blah. And am I hearing that? I don't know. I guess I'm hearing. I kind of sweep it a little bit, but in the analog world, a little goes a long way, and you hear stuff in a way. And again, I think part of it's just because you're focusing differently. Your eyes aren't telling you anything. It's all ears. You look at the knob, and you don't have you don't you don't have anything to really reference and get yourself distracted. And so with the digital stuff, it's fun because it has so much power, and it's so comprehensive, but you can't lose focus of the fundamentals. It's got to still sound good, or you don't want to over compress, over um, I guess saturate with EQ or plugins and stuff. You got to focus on clean, open, full, rich sound. And I'm also someone who embraces a lot of stereo. I know there's a lot of mono, or people want to keep it the same from one side of the venue to the next, and I'm not of that ilk. I'm much more into the spatial or the object based. So as far as I can push items and objects and create a big sound, and if I can open up the spatialization or the experience for more people, I will, even if it means when you're on one side of the venue, it's a little different than on the other side. It's not that different if you're in an acoustic with a acoustic ensemble. If you're sitting, because at the Walt Disney Concert Hall, it's a orchestra in the round. So if you're sitting on the side, you hear a different blend of orchestral elements than you do if you're sitting in the middle or if you're sitting behind them.
Sure.
And so in the world of sound design or sound amplification reinforcement, I think it's okay. I think there's some wiggle room on how you make it sound for all of the patrons, and there's a big advantage if you can spread the sound a bit and create that dimension. So
That's fantastic. I had this old axiom that I think you somewhat validated here, is that use technology to solve problems and then use your ears and your experience to create the performance, or to create the art, if you will. And I don't know, does that sound like that fits with your kind of your paradigm there?
yeah, spot on. I think that people, or a surprising number of people, don't realize the position of the sound mixer, sound designer in some ways. I mean, maybe this group does because it's a focus on these technologies, but it is technology at the end of the day. It's not the solution, it's the tool. And you still have to have technique, and you still have to focus on that technique. And as I say to um, colleagues and people that ask, that you can buy a $200,000 Steinway piano and put it on that stage, but it doesn't mean you're going to sound like a fantastic player. I mean, if you're an amateur or a beginner, you're still going to sound like an amateur or beginner, no matter what that instrument is. If that's a $100,000 Steinway, you still sound like you sound. And I would take someone with great technique over someone with a great instrument, with no technique. So and if you have someone with great technique on a great instrument, wow, then the sky's the limit.
Magic really happens.
So, that's one of those things that, yeah, don't forget, you have to still listen, and you still have to pay, critical attention to the signal flow, the gain structure, the way you have it laid out, and don't overthink it and overdo it just because you can. Make sure it all makes sense, and you're not adding stuff to it that's going to be corrupting the sound.
Sure. I got another question for you. One of the biggest problems on stage has always been the SPL that's on stage with the talent. And, with modern line array systems and other techniques, and now with, the next generation of wireless microphones, multiple DSP elements, and wireless inner monitoring, what have you seen change in that regard, and how has that helped or hurt the performance?
Well, I think it helps a lot when you have complicated ensembles. You have band or rhythm elements, drums, bass, guitar, keyboard, amplification, and orchestral or acoustic stuff. Those are game changers. Those are big difference. If somebody has to have floor wedges blasting, the keyboard or the vocal or something, every mic on that stage is going to pick it up. Like I was talking about friendly fire earlier. If
Right.
if I have 130 mics in the orchestra open, and I'm bringing them up and down. I read music. I can follow the charts and kind of keep them so that I'm not blasting or pushing the brass mics when they're not playing for this song or this section. But nonetheless, the more controlled the sound is on stage, and with these technologies where people can do in-ear, or they have mics that are on them that are really focused on, it really helps. Inevitably, you're going to get the performer who holds the mic 2 feet from their mouth, or doesn't have any real concern for all the other elements going on. But, granted, there's a lot of other pressure. You got a camera, you got lights, you got an audience is expecting you to be, perform. So holding that mic up and really singing into it, because that's what's best for the monitor mixer or the front of house mixer or the recording, isn't necessarily always the priority. And so I'd like to think that everybody was on board with that, but when you can put mics on them or keep them in there on the performers in a way that they're comfortable, life is a lot better. The more comfortable the performer, the better the performance.
That's cool. You mentioned earlier your experience doing the Barbra Streisand orchestra when she came back out after not performing for so many years. I remember watching that and just being in awe. I've always been a Barbara Streisand's always been one of my favorites. So do you feel like you were kind of mentored in that experience by more senior people with more experience? Did they kind of help you out in that regard? You mentioned that you were kind of a newbie there, and you wanted to see what your chops were like, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I was definitely uh, being taught some lessons along the way, and again, everybody, you have to accept the fact that you don't know it all, and you're not going to know it all. You know certain things, and at certain levels of experience, you're going to um, be able to do this much, and you need. It just takes years. I mean, I like to think that I in the sense, get better every year. And I think I do. I make an effort, conscious effort to know more or try to learn things every day, or certainly every event kind of adds something to it. So yeah, I was definitely given some schooling in that arena. And I was fortunate at that level, I was with that level of people.
Yeah, I would say so. I've had the chance of associating with lots of the live sound world in some of my previous roles. So I taught at the live sound workshop at Chapman College there for a while, and I've gotten to know a lot of the at the time. I mean, we're talking 20 years ago. Some of the top touring sound companies that there are, and it seems like if you can kind of prove your worth, then you can be mentored along. They're actually kind of anxious to help you to be successful. Nobody wants to see bad audio happen. And I was going to ask you if that's something that you kind of look forward to the opportunity of doing is as you see talent as you go into different venues, helping them to kind of come along. Is that something that you enjoy doing, or is that just kind of happens along the way?
Very much so. I mean, I think it's important to help the next generation, audio folks, kind of take from what you've learned and add to it. I'm extremely interested in people that are motivated and really focused and have a background that supports it. When somebody says, "Oh, it looks like what you do is so much fun. How do I do this?" Well, there's fun elements, but there's a lot of work and took a lot of discipline and a lot of, you know, telling my family or friends or something, "Hey, I can't do that this weekend. I know it's, so and so's anniversary or so and so's birthday, but I've got this gig or I've got something I'm into and I've got to see this through." So, when I hear people talk about work-life balance, I sit there and go, "Well, I'll tell you, I mean, I work a lot, and my wife is in the entertainment business too, and she works a lot, and so she understands that there's that world of work, and then life is what you make of it around that time.
Mhm.
And so young people that come and show that kind of real focus, and that I tell people, hey, show up on time, show up with a good attitude, and sober, ready to kick it. You're going to learn things, and as long as you keep that brain of yours ticking, that you don't have to come in knowing it all. You have to come in having familiarity and understanding, but you have to be able to absorb and then advance it. And those that want to learn, I have no problem at all helping to instruct or helping to guide. I mean, I was able to receive that from several colleagues, and they made a difference in my life, and I have no problem pushing or helping with that with the right group going forward.
That's really cool. My feeling is that I have a greater degree of trust for someone who asks questions and is eager to learn and understand, and certainly is not afraid to talk about things that they know, but is never afraid to ask a question. Is this the right point to connect? Is this the right mic to use for this position? You have a lot more confidence in giving them job and giving them insight as to what to
Well,
do.
and I also think that learning what has been successful, in the past, whether it's the mic technique, um, instead of trying to kind of, you know, go down a new path, like, oh, I'm going to mic it this way, or I'm going to do it this way. Well, I don't have a problem with trying new stuff, but why don't you master what's been really working for many years, and then expand on that,
Sure.
because likely you're not going to come up with um, ideas or things that haven't been thought of or tried before. And I'm not saying there aren't some new ground to cover or there's not new stuff to figure out. I'm just saying that master what has been successful, and then build on that. That would be a good move.
Yeah. Great advice. Well, that's a perfect segue into kind of our last question here is, what do you see in the future in terms of the next big development to help us with audio performances, with live sound production? What would you like to see? Kind of give us a little bit of an insight as to where you see the industry going, and what you would like to see the industry do going forward.
Well, it's a tough question because technology has such an impact on things, and just as you see one protocol is popular now and it kind of fizzles or goes away down the road. Um, I know that network technologies are here to stay, and being able to put several consoles, several IO boxes, or several persons all together connected with these technologies is a future. And understanding matrix mixing and kind of dimensional matrix mixing is imperative. I've had some work with Fox Sports, and I've seen a lot of sporting world stuff in the last few years, and just blown away with the technologies that the sports world brings to entertainment. And it is entertainment, it's sport, but it's still entertainment. And
Sure.
I'd like to see those technologies more in the world of live shows, live performance. I don't think I'm alone in that desire, but what you can do with video and audio, and these massive systems where fiber and data are throwing stuff around, and you could have events that are simultaneous but still connected together, from different spaces, different um, venues to different lands, is amazing. Um, and again, just because you can doesn't mean you want to do it. You just have to find that right balance of what technology you can bring to the live show, and that's dependable, reliable, and you have time to manage. But if you can bring in that sports world, that theme park world, and kind of supersize or enhance the live show, um, that's wonderful. I mean, and it's happening. I mean, there are artists that are doing it. What I'd like to see more from artists is live performance and not track based
Mm.
performance. I really I really enjoy musicians playing and keen or focusing on each other. And when you play to a track, it's there's that sense of a little bit of, it's a little controlled, it's a little stilted at times. And I get it's repeatable and it's hard to do successive or back-to-back shows that are large scale without some kind of thing that anchors everything. But man, there are musicians out there that can play and can play really well. And giving them a click track is one thing, making it a full band that they're playing on top of is another. And I'm it's just night and day difference when somebody is playing without track versus with track, these tunes. And I as a somebody who's interested in music and musical performance, you come away sometimes and you go, oh, that was an okay performance. And sometimes you come away and you go, wow, something just magical happened. And that's what happens in live performance. But when a
Yeah.
track's playing, it's kind of down to, it's keeps it at a certain level the whole time. So you don't have that chance of it going extraordinary.
Yeah.
Track restricts that. And I understand the need and the desire and the security of it, but I would love to see more abandonment of the track performance, and just let's just kick it, and it's okay. You make a mistake or it doesn't glue as much as it, might, because when it does connect and everything's perfect or it's just extraordinary, that's the reason why we go see live shows. And that's what
Right.
turns me on. And I'll take the chance when something goes that's not expected, or something just comes together unexpectedly that way. It's so exciting. You remember those events and you
Yep.
go, wow, that I'm going to go see more of this.
Yeah, I refer to them as the people where the performers and the audience get into a flow state together. And as a result, there's this really cool thing that happens in everybody's brains, talking about a psychological background, that brings them all together. And you can't get that if you're reading from a script, if you're just following along, if something else that is in your ear, it has to be almost like in your soul. And as a result, you can anticipate, and there's just a real cool thing that happens there.
That synergy
Great
is
insight.
why we live, and that's human stuff that is just
Yeah.
fun and totally what I want to see more of or be part of.
Well, that explains why you're so good. Is you enjoy the artistry, the beauty, the majesty of doing live sound production. That's really cool. This has been fantastic. Appreciate your time with us. Fantastic.
My pleasure, and look forward to more.
All right, we are in the final stretch. It's now time to answer any questions you all might have. Joining us from our audience Q&A, joining us for our audience Q&A is Fred Vogler, Grammy Award-winning sound designer and front of house engineer, and representing both Shure and Allen Heath, Ross Hornbuckle from Gear Tech. Big thanks to Shure and Allen Heath for sponsoring this session today. And last but not least, we've got our very own live audio expert, Andrew Vargas from Keycode Media. So let's dive in. Let's see. This first question, let's send this one to Fred. What are your views, predictions around immersive audio and immersive sound systems connected to live sound?
Well, I embrace immersive audio and look forward to what that technology will bring and all the creative possibilities. I have had the opportunity to mix on Eliza and Space Map Go with Meyer and Eliza with L Acoustics, and have been part of some of the D&B situations as well with immersive settings. And I just think it brings another dimension, another, I guess, quality of experience that is one of those things that when we've talked about what the future is or how we can make live experience better, immersive technologies make you want to go there and get out of your house and actually experience that in a group in that location. So I fully embrace and look forward to more of it.
Yeah, I love that. They're kind of getting that human element into the event. From a technology standpoint, Ross, anything that you want to add to that, or Andrew?
Sure, we certainly identify it as the next step, and luckily, Moore's law works for all of us. Eventually, things are getting faster. Processing power comes down in cost. We have more opportunity to allow for what the creative side of the industry is going to demand of the technical side, the manufacturing side of the industry. So we're definitely looking ahead down this road.
Yeah, I'll say there's a lot of development coming from the video gaming industry for their live immersive audio. A lot of tools and methods are definitely translating into the real immersive space as well.
Cool. All right, this one comes from Bill. Are there particular challenges or advice you would offer when dealing with direct feed devices, amps, effects, that kind of thing, and instruments using stage amps during live events? Fred, let's take that one back to you.
Well, I mean, it depends on how loud that amp is. I've seen occasions where the amp is so loud they want to put it off stage in a room and mic it and bring it, to the house. And what are the other elements on stage? If you have string instruments or acoustic instruments that need a lot of gain, then you have to put more baffling or more isolation on those devices so that they don't just take over and become part of everybody's pickup. So My preference is to keep the levels or the volume of those as low as possible. But there's plenty of occasions where you've got superstar like Santana or something, and he's going to play his guitar and his amp as loud as he wants, and you're going to have to accommodate. So maybe baffles and some kind of direct miking to try to control it in some way is the best you can do.
Are there things that Shure is doing to help with that that you want to touch on, Ross?
I think just continuing to offer, problem solving type microphones, like a Beta 181 is a good example, where you've got an interchangeable capsule, cardioid, supercardioid, bidirectional omni, more directional options, on vocal mics. We've had that on the KSM9 for some time, but having that diverse portfolio so you can choose how directional do you need to be with your microphone capture.
Excellent. What is Allen and Heath specifically doing? And this is going to kind of lead into another one for Fred. Is what is Allen and Heath really focusing on in terms of helping with the live production? And then Fred, if you can follow up with what your experience has been using Allen and Heath products.
I think one kind of core principle for Allen and Heath is making the desk as accommodating to each user as possible. So we can adapt to your workflow rather than forcing the operator to adapt to ours. We certainly have a point of view. There's kind of default settings, but you can fairly quickly customize SQ, Avantis, D Live to suit your needs, your application, whether you're theater, live sound, broadcast, or all three at once. All those sorts of things. Hopefully, Fred's had that experience.
Yeah, I would concur, and I would say that you can do it in progress too while you're mixing. It's remarkable how flexible and adaptable the Allen and Heath boards are, and you need something changed, and you're in the middle of the show. You can move stuff around quicker and faster on those boards than almost any board, and you're not fixed or stuck in a certain workflow. You can change or adapt your workflow on the spot or at the moment.
I'll offer one note of caution: don't change your output bus configuration, because that does interrupt audio real quick. But almost anything else, have at it.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to mess with the outputs either. But I'm just thinking, like, sometimes you want adjacent, faders or sends and stuff, and you can just easily bring up the control window and start moving those things around. So all those faders that you want in your, hot button faders are right there. And you can do that. It doesn't seem to affect the show or the sound at all. So it's been fun that way, learning Allen and Heath.
That sounds like a perfect example of technical solutions that are solving problems that enable you to engage more effectively in the performance art of being a live sound front of house engineer.
Yeah, well, you can't predict everything, right? I mean, you don't know what's coming, and sometimes things change unexpectedly, and you have a oh, by the way experience, oh, by the way, so-and-so is coming out, or oh, by the way, we're going to move this element from stage left to stage right, and you may want to reorient your console or move stuff around. So yeah, you definitely need adaptable and quick technology.
I'll also add that Allen and Heath does a really great job of doing companion apps, both desktop and mobile apps, as well as custom apps. In fact, just on a recent job, I was able to create a whole new custom UI page in front of the client and populate it with custom buttons, all and have him try it out all within about 10 minutes. And it was he was really impressed, and it was a great experience for all of us.
That's quite interesting. Kind of moving along those same lines, we got a question here where this is from NTT Broadcast. They deal a lot with public speakers in open forums, think like 25 people in a gymnasium, and the biggest challenge is feedback from the PAs. Any suggestions on how to fight this? And Andrew, why don't you take this one to start?
Yeah, this is the classic problem. Well, so it starts with just an assessment of the position and orientation of the performers with respect to the audience, the speakers, and the microphones. So you'll have to assess that such that you want the speakers in front of the speakers and the microphones shooting towards the audience. Shure actually has a really great calculator for this. I think they call it the PAG-NAG calculator. I'll make sure to look up a link for this, but yeah, if you have any trouble with that, you can just punch it into a calculator, and it will do the math for you and suggest the right position and orientation of your speakers with respect to your microphones. So that's first off, right? And then if you're still experiencing feedback due to some sort of nature of the room, whatever it might be, and this is feedback, assuming feedback from the main speaker, the main PA for the audience that is feeding back into the mic, right? So you kind of have to troubleshoot exactly where that feedback is coming from, right? Whether it might be the main PA or it could actually be a stage monitor if it's like a musical performance or something like that. So that's the first step, is just assessing where it comes from. And oftentimes the solution is just to turn down the mic a little bit, and you'll realize that, yeah, you don't need that much gain before it starts to feed back. We call that gain before feedback. And if you do find out after all those troubleshooting steps, you do find that you still need more gain, that's when you still need more loudness to the audience. That's when you start doing what we call ringing out, as in you have the microphone, you test it at its ideal loudness, and if it's still feeding back, it'll feed back at a resonant frequency, a certain pitch that we recognize as just a pitch. That corresponds to a frequency that you can actually notch out with filters, and so you can eliminate that problem frequency and still maintain the right loudness and intelligibility to your audience. And so that's really the last step, though, in a long set of troubleshooting steps before you get to that point. And once you get to that point, then we can start talking about auto mixers and feedback eliminators, but definitely address simple steps before you get to the more complex, technological solutions.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. Anything you want to add to that, Fred?
Well, I mean, was said, Andrew said, the orientation of the speakers is a big deal. And then mic technique, how well the speaker is talking into the mic. If it's a, distant speaker, somebody who's holding the mic from a distance. And I think people underestimate how hard it is to amplify a single element like a person talking in a PA. And sometimes those are the scariest elements. And so you have to work with the performer or the speaker, and then you have to orient them or that person on stage or in the area so that they're not too close to the main array. And then get yourself a real-time analyzer. You can do it with an app on your phone or something, and then find those troubled frequencies and notch those guys out in your EQ, because there's no magic to it. It's a physics thing, gain before feedback is everything, and people want to hear voice clear and present, and it takes a combination of things going right for that to happen. So
great. This next one is going to be a kind of a combination from two questions that came in from Tom and Jane, and this deals with there's so much new technology that's coming out all the time. How do you ensure that you stay updated with the latest tools and techniques to enhance your work? And then how do you anticipate and address potential challenges or concerns when you deploy that new technology into a live event? Fred, let's start with you on that one.
Well, that's a tricky question. It's hard to stay up on everything. There's so much going on, and there's so many people that are doing smart things and incredible things worldwide. I think you have to be open-minded. I think you have to read a lot. I think you have to, be present at different types of events. And when you have an opportunity to try something, don't try it by abandoning everything you've learned to that point, because if something has been successful, you've got a pattern or something that works. maintain that, and then try little incremental things that would bring in this new technology or this new technique, and see if that enhances what you've been doing. And hopefully you have some colleagues that are, friends, mentors, trusted people that you can also get feedback or discuss stuff with, and they can help introduce and help you better what you're doing, and you better what they're doing. It's kind of a mutual relationship where you have people that are around you that support your cause and you help their cause. So
cool. One of the things that kind of came to mind as you were describing that is kind of an approach, and maybe Ross, if you want to address this, having come from a substantially product management background standpoint, one of the key things I always look to do is what problems are out there that need to be solved, and what technologies could I deploy to solve those problems. In terms of product development, new product offerings, Ross, what is Shure and Alan Heath's, and maybe the industry in general, what is the approach to identifying problems, solving them, and then helping to get that information out into the field?
Yeah, so just the general question, how do you try to stay up on all of this information? On the manufacturing side, you can get to us. We are available. And you probably got to find a contact page on a website somewhere, but there are people like me in your local market, wherever you might be, who are here simply to answer these questions. Now, you get a very specific point of view when you call the person who's making the thing. We think it's great. So you'll also rely on partners like KeyCode and other folks who can kind of aggregate this information and put it in context, put it in practical terms for you. But you can get straight to the source. Understand who you're talking to, of course. We're the manufacturer. But I think we're a lot more accessible than the average person might think. We are simply here to answer these questions. More directly, how does Alan and Heath Shure approach this challenge? Alan and Heath did a lot of market research. I mean, hundreds of engineers around the world when they were building the DLive platform. And then Avantis and SQ really come from the DLive. Basically, when we did R&D for DLive, that became the jumping off point for what you see now in our whole product portfolio. And that was direct in the market. What are the problems the Freds of the world are experiencing? How would you like to see a manufacturer address something like, well, I'm in the middle of the show and I don't want my kick drum to be on fader 3 anymore. I want it to be on fader 17. It's getting that practical real world feedback. Same thing with Shure. We're not trying to develop microphones in a vacuum. We need to know what problems need to be solved. So we have to get out into the field and meet people and find out how our current products are being used and how they could be better suited for the challenges coming at us. So it's really kind of a bi-directional communication there, not to go back to a microphone term.
I love it. Andrew, anything that you want to add to that? Do you have any secret tricks for staying on top of all the cool technology that's out there?
Well, it's not a secret. It's just a list of a variety of different news aggregation websites, forums, and just list and podcasts and YouTube channels, all related to what's new in the industry, right? So I won't be specific, but I could say that just do your research and see what the latest podcasts are, YouTube channels, forums are for live sound engineering, and you'll be surprised that a lot of them are really active, and they're really helpful for keeping up to date with both the technology, but also just the cultural aspect, the methods that we use. There's a lot of activity around it.
And of course, you can always reach out to KeyCode Media, and we'll help you. And we have lots of these podcasts, so we're always there as a resource for everybody to find out about new technologies and new techniques.
I was going to concur with Ross too, that the manufacturers are a wonderful resource, and if you are experiencing an issue or have a concern or need something, and you reach out to someone like Ross or the manufacturers, there are people that are very accessible, but very informed and can help with problem solving. So I've been my experience with most manufacturers. They're really great.
Yeah, don't be afraid to reach out and ask. There are no dumb questions other than the one that you don't ask, right? Okay, I think we got time for one more, and I think this one will be a little bit fun. The question from John is, what do you think about AI, and are vendors integrating AI into live production, and what's the impact going to be? I love this because, man, this is right on topic from our pre-discussion discussion. So who wants to take that one first?
Do it, Fred. Tell them.
Okay, Fred, you're on.
Well, as Steve said, we had a pre-discussion about AI, and I'm a believer in humankind and want to reinforce human interaction and human control, or I guess vision. And AI can solve a lot of problems because there's no emotion or greed or all sorts of crazy stuff that can influence performance. But to get to that higher level of artistic expression and artistic experience, I think that it's really important to keep humans in the game, or if not in control. So I'm excited for the potential with AI and if making things more efficient or higher quality and all that stuff, but I still want to see more educated and informed and open-minded, creative humans to be in the game and kind of keep AI at a little bit of a distance from live performance.
That's excellent. Use technology to solve problems, but engage in the art of producing live sound. Well, this has been fantastic. I think we're out of time for today. Want to give a special thanks to Fred for being our keynote, and Ross and Andrew for joining the Q&A. And if you're currently looking to upgrade any production or audiovisual system, please feel free to reach out to us or on our website. And again, thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching Broadcast to Post. Please make sure to subscribe to the podcast to receive future episodes. Follow Keycode Media on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram to receive news on additional AV, broadcast, and post-production technology content. See you next time, folks.